Test. Testing.
Test. Testing.
Okay, well, I figured it out. This is the first time that I've actually put this on stream, so bear with me here. So what I thought we'd do is just take a look at, and I'd give it a little explanation of NVIDIA here, and just interpreting what's happening here. Give it a little education. So what I've got here and showing you is what I look at, as a setup, and I have on my other screens to interpret, how to decide what to do here with a setup. Starting with the daily chart. We got a nice daily. It came down real hard. This has obviously been one of the big stocks that have been in favor. And, it made this little double bottom down here on the rising 20. So, we got a plus there, to consider it on the long side. Then, my personal choice to look at intraday is to use the 30-minute time frame to see which way is it trending. Is it making higher highs and higher lows? Is it in an area of support, which it was here as it bottomed out? It looks actually pretty similar to the daily chart. You see pulling back into the gap here, and this little bottoming action and turning up, and it's dealing with this resistance that's over here to the left right here, which you can see on the 5-minute. So on the 5-minute time frame, combining that with the 30-minute time frame is, does it match? So once it comes into support, then I'm looking for a pattern on the 5-minute to confirm what's beginning to happen here. So here's in essence, my big picture bias: daily, 60-minute, the location being at support here. And then, since this was in a downtrend, I don't know that it's going to recover. I know it's in an area where it's likely to recover. And then I wait for a pattern to begin to set up that it actually does recover. So the same way we can get a retest and reversal pattern on the daily chart, we can get a retest and reversal pattern on the 5-minute chart. And so, what I'm looking for is alignment of multiple time frames. Now, I have a stock that is likely to go up once it's in the right location and with the right pattern in multiple time frames. The other thing that I have to consider is what's the broader markets doing. So I've got the NASDAQ futures here, and I'm going to take note of its trend and support and resistance. So NVIDIA is beginning to move up and was acting quite well here. And so how do you quantify something like is acting quite well? Well, you can see here it started to move up and it came back down, and that suggesting that it would move lower, and it didn't. So why did it stop? Why did it stop moving up here and come back in? That's where the broader markets come into play, meaning the futures coming up to resistance. Can they get through that? So obviously I don't know at that time. And I would do the same thing. I don't have it up here, but what is the daily chart of the futures? What's the 30-minute chart? And then here I've got the 5-minute. So as it's here at this resistance area, the question is, can it get through it? And it's part, observing what's happening in the moment at that point. So if this would have been able to push through here and push higher, that should have been able to fuel NVIDIA to push up toward the high of the day. So the more weakness that comes in to the futures here, the greater the odds that NVIDIA begins to break down. And you can see this retracement here happened at exactly the same time, which we can look at. And we can line these up. And you can see that they happen together. And that's why if you're going to be an intraday trader, you need to be aware of what the broader markets are doing if you're going to trade a stock that's going to be influenced by the broader markets. There are stocks that will be on their own page, as we say, and they can ignore that. And it's even possible that NVIDIA could have, because it's a relatively strong stock within the market, it's not as strong here as it was here. But it's possible that a stock could ignore what the markets are doing. And that happens, then you know that you have extreme relative strength. So generally today is a correction day in the market. And the video that I posted first thing in the morning before the open, I said that it's possible that today would be a corrective type of day where you'd get an inside bar. And you can watch that video if you didn't. And I said you the likelihood would be to get an inside bar, and ideally in the upper part of the range of this wide range bar here. And so far that's what's happening. We still have an hour and a half to go before the market closes. So right now clearly there's selling pressure, and one of the ways of observing and measuring here what's happening in NVIDIA, and I can see it's pulled in obviously, but I've got 2 5-minute charts, and you can see where the futures here have continued to inch lower, where NVIDIA has begun to move sideways. So it is showing some degree of strength versus the broader markets. Now, as the markets come down to this area of support here, and so let's just mark that off, right, just as a reference. So I'd mark off like that. It's a relatively wide area, and so as it comes in here, it's likely that we start to see some level of buying in this area to see this begin to hold. And let's see, NVIDIA buyers are beginning to show up here, and they'll wait to see, does the market actually hold here in this area, because it's down near the low of the day. Now, one of the things that the futures market, equity futures typically do, is that they come down to the low of the day like this, and they'll break it. They'll break to a new low on the day, and then it'll begin to spring back up again. It's just the nature of this market, or the personality of equity futures is what they'll often do. Just recapping what I said here is to take note of any stock. I picked NVIDIA, but any stock that you would choose to trade and do the analysis in multiple time frames, starting with your daily and seeing, is it in an uptrend, is it in a sideways trend, or in a downtrend. And these moving averages that I have here is a 20, a 50, and a 200. So it's trending up. And I know that this 50 here, as we could look at different things, but this 50 here is a 10-period moving average on a weekly time frame. So just by looking at these two moving averages, I know that the daily and the weekly are in an uptrend. The 20 is above the 50, and they're both rising. So that's a positive. What is the trend intraday? Well, here I'm looking at the 30-minute. It's in an uptrend, and it pulled back to where buyers should show up, the unfilled gap, and then we move down to the intraday smaller time frame to look for a price pattern, giving confirmation that buyers are beginning to step up. And so it was in a downtrend. Right? Lower highs, lower lows, pops up, retest, begins to base out here, and then you get a signal right here, and it begins to move up, and then you begin to monitor it bar by bar, and then the trend, what are the futures doing, and so on and so forth. It's a thought process that continues, obviously constantly, and no indicators here. Right? You don't need any stochastics or MACDs or so on. You're just following trend, support, resistance, relative strength, relative weakness. Where's the next reference point of resistance? So as we would look at different stocks, we could then determine what is the likelihood of prices trending or being more choppy. So, and what I said before with the futures, if they were able to push through here, I'm sure NVIDIA would have been pushing up to new highs, and it would have been able to push through this resistance area right there, rather than pull back. So you can see the direct correlation, how the futures affected a stock that was acting quite well and was looking to push up. And that a stock like this is being traded by a lot of day traders, institutional day traders, hedge funds, and so on. So even, a small blip like this, it can affect a stock like that, even with institutions trading it, because none of us know, to the extent of how much this might pull back. And the larger position you have, the greater the leverage, of course. You're not going to give it a lot of room, and then we would wait to see, does it recover? Does the market recover? And as long as the market stays weak, odds are this really isn't going to do much. It could actually start to break down. However, this isn't the type of setup that would be interested in selling short, since it's a stock that shows relative strength. Rather, we'd look for something that is weak. Comments, questions, you're welcome. And it's the first time I've done the streaming here. I do the videos each morning with a market update, what's happening, pre-market. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that, picked up some information to help you in your trading, and we'll look to put out some notices as to when I'll be on here live, and we can do some trading and do some educational stuff, and help everybody out. So, have a great day, everybody. I'm gonna log off now.